Why don't we throw it on up there so we can just have you guys tell us what you think about the idea. It hasn't been
So,
programmed, right? This is super, super early, but like we've
yep.
talked about this perk, and this is an idea that has survived at least one round of discussion. We thought, you know what,
Mm,
let's go ahead and
yep.
ask the
Just
community.
a note on this one. If y'all nice and we can have actual discussions back and forth, feedback discussions and constructive feedback, this might be something that we do more often in the future, where we show you an early design and we ask for feedback. Now, this is very scary for us because if this comes and it doesn't work and we don't do this design, we don't want to hear it like 6 months down the line. But you said you promised. No, 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 no. This was a part of a discussion with the community. So this is a test. We're seeing if this works. We're opening the discussion with you guys, and this is it. Louis, do you want to get over like the changes or the proposed changes?
Yeah. So we wanted to keep the idea of a perk that connects you to the killer, that has this sort of like peeking, you see them, they see you kind of gameplay, but maybe it wasn't quite as antagonistic. Survivors can use the current object of obsession in a way that is, well, basically they can be very annoying with it. And while it might not be the most powerful perk, it's definitely a frustrating one to see.
It
With the,
completely destroys stealth killers. It's so sad when you're playing a stealth killer and you're like, oh, hi, dude, you're over there.
Yeah, it can be rough. So what we figured was this is a way to keep that aspect of you seeing them, them seeing you, try to keep the obsession element involved. That's why we added the second power I'd like to talk about called Decisive Strike. So we have a change coming up for that, not in the mid chapter, but in the chapter after that. So not next week, but the next thing that comes out after that is going to be the Decisive Strike change. We've talked about this perk a lot internally. There were a lot of different options we felt to assuage some of the frustrations that people feel about the perk. The direction we went with was disabling the ability if the survivor does actions that advance their objectives, essentially. So it stays available until you've, let's say, done something useful.
On reworking existing content, we're not looking at creating entirely new ones, right? So reworks are happening, but don't expect any like brand new swamp maps in the near future. That's not a thing that's on the immediate roadmap. I mean, yeah, it's getting the same kind of graphical update that everything else is getting, right? Like I said, we're doing all the maps, guys, baby steps, one at a time. I don't know when they're all going to happen. I don't have any dates to hand you, but we're crawling through because we want to increase the visual fidelity and overall presentation of Dead by Daylight.
Well done.
All we can say at the moment is that it's not in the immediate plan. It's not like it's not something that doesn't matter, but we can't say that it's on the current roadmap. Yeah, we've had a lot of people ask us about this, and every time I feel the same way. I'm like, yeah, that sounds really cool. So it's been discussed internally. It's not simple. It's actually a very complicated feature, not only in terms of development, but also for testing. So I can't say that it's planned anytime in the near future, but I wouldn't say that we would rule it out. It's a really cool idea.
So the plan here is basically not much has changed for the release, and we're going to go into this a little bit onto why. But what I'm saying today is that we're going to look at focused feedback specifically for UI for a few weeks after the release, after everyone, and not just only Steam players on the PTB, had their hands for a little while on the new UI. However, there's one thing we really wanted to address, though, and that will be done before the release, is the whole colorblind issue that was with the new UI. So we know that our colorblind player had a lot of difficulty reading the UI, so this is something that we pushed first to
trying to find something that is engaging, that makes you feel like you're actually struggling against, the entity trying to take your life there, but also is an actual improvement in terms of the mechanical buttons you got to press. So I don't have anything concrete to announce like when it's gonna happen. Isn't the system? It's not that the matchmaking system itself is like bad at putting people together at certain times of day, but it's rather that there aren't the right players in the queue. And killers, as soon as a killer joins the queue, the system is going, oh yeah, and pairing them up with
We
core
do
survivors.
want to give killers their own chase music when we update them. We basically bundle new music with the gameplay changes that they get. We can't promise that every single killer is going to get new music. It kind of depends on who we're looking at and what the scope of the changes are to them. So we like it. We cannot promise that every killer is getting their own music. We do have a plan for keys. These systems are both going to get some bigger changes. More changes coming for Mori, more changes coming for keys. It's still pretty early in that process, so we can't get more precise about it. But it's a larger change than what we did to the Moris.
It does suck if you get slugged for like a while, or tunneled, or camp, but there are many perks against that. So we want to address it because it's been a while since we addressed this question, and that's the answer for now.
Game right away. The answer I'm going to give you is maybe, probably not, maybe. I'm much more interested in spending our time and effort trying to fix the underlying issues of why the matchmaking takes so long, why those people are disconnecting before they come in the game.
We do have a UI and quality of life improvements list. It's about a mile long. This is definitely on it. Can't make any commitments about a timeline. It has to do with prioritizing all of the various things that we'd like to do to improve the UI. We will keep you posted. It seems like a pretty high value add. So the next pass, the next 3 killers are Freddy, Demogorgon, and Huntress. We are not yet able to tell you what all of the changes are exactly. But
is it in that order or it's in mixed order?
I can't even give you that. Just these are the 3. They're in our site.
We have no intention to stop making them, no intention to make them safer, like to not rock the boat, or the new perks are exciting for both the players and honestly the developers.
Yes, it is a bug, and this bug will be addressed. What's happening?
I feel you on that one. I'd love it too. Don't have a timeline for when that's getting done.
That
I'm hesitant to explain every single detail, and the reason why is because I don't want to change how people are playing the game instead of just dance around it for 10 minutes. The initial version of the skill-based matchmaking was based solely around kills and escapes, just as a starting point, right? It was solely on kills or escapes. Yeah, it wasn't the best. It wasn't perfect. And so since then, we have continually added more parameters to this, more elements of the game, of the results of the game, to have a better understanding and better way to rate the skill and the performance of each player.
We're going to be targeting the mid-chapter patches for larger volume of quality of life and game health changes. So the plan is not to stop making new stuff. The plan is to just ramp up on those quality of life and game health changes, specifically mid chapter. Not that there won't be like more good stuff in chapters 2, but the mid chapters are where the majority of this effort goes.
We're continuing to look at the daily rituals, but I would not expect any major overhauls to the system or the ratio of the challenges that you're seeing anytime in the near future.
We can say to expect any sort of overhaul for all killer animations. However, there are some things specifically that are broken or not working quite right for killers. Like, for example, we've heard you about Hillbilly has some animation problems. That stuff will get fixed.
Single number value. These are entire overhauls of underlying systems that often internally result in knock-on issues that then need to get fixed and stabilized. So we are working on things to continue to leverage the dedicated servers to do things like cut down on cheating, to do things like make sure hits and hit detection is more reliable. They're hard. They're very hard. But we are doing that.
There was a brief mention of it. It has since turned into something different, which we're still working on, and it's not really like a early game phase. It's something different, which we'll talk about later.
Is there a concrete plan right now? No. But we are looking at it. We're trying to build that plan out and figure out the best way to do it while maintaining the fun of progressing in the game, but without making it feel like you just are trying to climb an unscalable cliff face.
Yes, there were changes made for the Blight's first-person animations and the camera point of view to make him essentially feel taller and have a proper point of view like other characters.
I see the Blight eyebrows.
Yeah, this change is not in the mid-chapter. It's in the chapter that's going to be following it. We talked about Legion. There was a bit of a snafu with Legion after the last release, and he had lost a visual effect during Frenzy that made it feel like he was a lot slower all the time. We fixed the visual effect. When you're running around with Frenzy, he always was the same speed, but he was missing some FOV stuff. That got fixed, but then after the fix, people still thought there was something a little bit wrong with him. We identified the issue. It was acceleration during the Frenzy attack. Specifically, that has been fixed, and that is coming not in the release, but in the first follow-up patch. We sometimes call them hotfix patches or follow-up patches or bug fix patches. That'll be coming in a follow-up patch to the mid-chapter. So before the chapter, after the mid-chapter, there's a fix for Legion's Frenzy Swing.